You start to get really weird psychology. You've invested 6 weeks in this trade and then you start to think, man, if I cut and then it works, I'm going to kill myself.
I've got a special guest, president of Spectra Markets, Brent Donnelly. What are your thoughts about gold? We broke out from 3,500 after a 5-month consolidation. Looks clean as could be to me. What do you think about it?
That was an incredible breakout. It gets confusing because all of these things are liquidity sponges. Liquidity is plentiful. Everything just goes up.
The dollar on the lows of the range of the year.
It's been really, really hard. Like interest rate differentials and dollar yen tend to move together.
What heartache have you endured in your life?
I think marriage.
What's happening, good people? I'm here to record Macro Dirt Podcast number 64 with special guest, president of Spectra Markets, Brent Donnelly. How are you today, my man?
Hello. I'm good.
Good, man. Let's dig right into this. My man, Jared Dillian, is traveling. Brent and I are going to go at it today.
You look so tanned and you have such beautiful hair. You're making me feel, you're making me jealous.
Oh, that's funny, man. You're too kind. You look great as well. I'll be honest with you. You look fantastic. You got a big smile on your face. You're properly trimmed up here. And I'm really honored that you took the time to spend and talk with us today. If you don't know Brent Donnelly, he writes for Spectra Markets. Brent, what is your technical title?
I'm president of Spectra Markets, which is an offshoot of Spectra FX Solutions. So I write a lot about macro and all that stuff. I wrote some books, and then I also cover clients in FX and FX options.
Beautiful. I mean, the reason that I love you so much is that you translate very complicated markets into very easy to understand sound bites and sentences for me. And that is a real gift that not a lot of people have, but the people that are survivors in markets have that kind of gift because it means that their brain is processing something really clearly and they're able to help other people. So that's a valuable thing that you are to me, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like you and Jared do that too, kind of boil it down and not a lot of ivory tower. It's all pretty practical when it's coming from you guys as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's cool to have somebody on and talk to that you read every day. So it doesn't have to be a one-way conversation today. Yeah. We can go back and forth. Today's date is September 15th, Brent. I know that, the 16th we're recording. Yesterday was September 15th. What comes to mind?
Well, I know you know what I know. It reminds me of Lehman Brothers. And so I was at Lehman at the end. And the craziest thing, I was a dollar yen trader. So the craziest thing was like, not as much now, but back then, almost everything I did had to do with correlations and like intraday stuff, gold up, buy Aussie, stocks down, sell dollar yen. And it wasn't so crowded in those days. So it was like, I was going to say free money. It definitely was not free money, but it was a really good intraday strategy to just have like 5 or 6 correlations. Like the dollar was so correlated with oil at that time. Yeah. So I was always kind of fine tuning like my matrix of correlations. And actually the number one correlation at that time was Lehman Brothers stock to dollar yen, which was insane because I was trading dollar yen and I worked at Lehman. So like they'd come out of that. I don't know if you remember the meeting or the earnings where they did like the shit co, like they split it into, they tried to peel off the bad assets and put it into a shit co.
I remember that.
And the market did not like that. The stock was at like $8 already and it went to like 5 that day. And like, I remember selling so much dollar yen based on what Lehman was doing. I'm like, no matter how much money I make on this dollar yen short, it might not matter.
Right. I think I have career risk selling this much dollar yen, right? Like, good God, that has got to be some position to be in. Why was the correlation so close?
Because it was the proxy for the financial system at that point, because the market had kind of decided like, okay, everything is getting bailed out was the thesis originally. Mm-hmm. And then the market had kind of decided like, maybe the political will isn't there to bail out Lehman because of like past folly and like the Dick Folds arrogance and all that stuff. So it was kind of perceived as like, if they let Lehman go, the whole system, it could go.
Yeah.
and Lehman stock is a proxy for like, whether they're going to let it go or not. So
Yeah.
it was insane. And just like a little advice to people that are if you're ever working at an institution that is in trouble, don't double down when the stock's down, because a lot of
Yeah.
people were doing that at Lehman. It's just like, you already
Yeah.
have so much invested in the firm, your job obviously, but all the stock you got before. Buying more stock is never the answer.
No, that's a great point, man. And then the stock was, the kind of the showcase, the marquee number in the market, right? Like if
Mm.
you weren't watching where Lehman was going that day, you had no idea what was happening in the world. And it was such an abrupt thing. Like personally, like just to share a memory, like I got run over buying Lehman at $20 and then made my money back from 15 to 5. You know what I mean? Like it was that hairy, and I was just like, no, I'm not getting killed. Actually, the writing is on the wall and I'm the one that missed that pitch, or however it was. It was a hairy situation, though. I had a lot of friends and family at the firm as well, so I was rooting for the place, and I continue to root for everybody that's come out of it. It was a great institution, no
Yeah,
matter
you know
what.
what? It's funny is that, like, despite the fact that it went bankrupt, I feel like Lehman's reputation is actually quite good in general. Like, obviously, Dick Folds is bad, but
Mhm.
like most of the sales and trading people that came out of Lehman have gone on to lead, trading and sales businesses at firms, because it was a great place to work in trading.
There were great people there, and I remember that there was a light no asshole rule that
Mm.
I always kind of perceived from that place and from the
Yeah,
people
no,
that I
that's
met
true.
and worked with, and it was like it was kind of my kind of people that were there.
Mm.
So it
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
it
like
was
everyone wanted to win, but nobody wanted to be assholes about it. So
yeah.
it was a really good culture for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of humility there towards the
Yeah.
markets for sure. So let's face the markets today. I want to talk about what's going on. We've got the stock market at an all-time high. We've got the dollar kind of, on its lows, the lows of the range of the year. Gold obviously exploding. What is the most topical thing on your desk every day as an FX leader in the markets?
Well, I would say like there's a strong consensus that the dollar goes down into year end, but it's been really, really hard. Like interest rate differentials and dollar yen tend to move together. And like with all the Fed easing priced in, the interest rate, and then also BOJ hikes, some BOJ hikes priced in, and then the back end of Japan selling off. It should have been like a textbook sell dollar yen trade, and like dollar yen's 146.55 as we record this, which is like a bit lower, but I mean it's not like, people were buying like 135s a couple of months ago. And
Mhm.
so I would say, despite the fact that like people are quite bearish dollar, positioning actually isn't that significant, just because we've been sitting here for so long. So we just made a new 3-year high in the euro, like just 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But we traded a range for a long time. And a lot of times, as you know, like positioning gets resolved not by price reversal, but just by time passing. And
Mhm.
so enough time has passed now that I feel like the market doesn't really have the trade. The only problem for me is that, like, can rate differentials move that much more? Like, can we get more Fed cuts priced in? I'm skeptical. So like I'm in the camp of a lot of what we're seeing in the labor market relates more to supply than to demand. So if you look at what the break even is for non-farm payrolls, like it used to be you need 150,000 jobs to keep the, balance in the labor market. But now that break even, I think, is closer to 50,000 because of the immigration crackdown and all that stuff. And then also just like labor force participation has gone down, even American born participation has gone down.
Mhm.
And then you have inflation around the world that's still pretty sticky. So the one sort of pushback to that is that you can kind of argue that the Fed has abandoned inflation targeting. Like
Yeah.
inflation's been above target for 53 months in a row. Like, what are we doing here? Like, obviously, they're not serious about it. And even in their forecast, right? They have core PCE at whatever, say 2.6 in 2024, and they're cutting. So the if they're going to run it hot like that, then maybe that's the recipe for obviously higher gold, weaker dollar, and higher stocks, higher basically just it's the classic fiat debasement trade
Yeah.
centered around the US. And then the only thing though is that if US asset prices keep going up, it's hard to really be like raging bearish dollar because the money just keeps flowing in. There's a crazy thing, and then I'll stop because I know my
No,
answer
I
is
want to
getting
hear it.
long.
Keep going.
But I had a dinner the other night with a bunch of European pension fund people, and we were talking about dollar hedging and reducing U.S. exposure and all that. And basically, they all said we can't reduce our dollar exposure very much because MSCI World is like 72% US now.
Mm-hmm.
And they all benchmark against that. So if you go underweight, and funny enough, some of them did go underweight over the years, like one way of benchmarking that you can use instead of MSCI World is to benchmark by GDP instead of by like equity, the size of the equity market.
Yeah.
And the funds that did that all massively underperformed, obviously, and they've all stopped out of that. So, like the last one was a Danish one, and they stopped out of it like 6 months ago because they just underperform year after year. And so the money just keeps on flowing into the US. And like, yeah, they can increase their hedge ratios, but some of it's unhedged. And so, like, actually, today was an interesting day, like super micro, but mostly the big problem with being short dollars is that New York time zone just buys dollars every day because the money flows into equities and a lot of that's foreign money and they need to buy dollars to buy the equities. So today, actually, the dollar sold off in New York, which was different. But that's why, like, I feel like if you're bullish euro dollar, say euro dollar is 118.35, you're looking for something like 121 or something like that, which is like higher, but not crazy. Like, I don't think we're in an environment where crazy targets will work. The only way they'll work is if you get a recession in the US, because in the olden days, the dollar was a safe haven and there was a dollar smile. So if we had US recession, dollar would rally. But when the market's massively overweight USA, it doesn't work like that. Like as we saw in 2001, 2002, when we had a US recession, the dollar went down.
Yeah. Yeah. I try not to get tied to, what direction securities go in, under certain scenarios, because there's always an exception. You know what I mean? And if
Yeah.
you're trading during the exception, you get run over. So
Mm.
I don't love that type of tactical. And I'm glad you really reinforced my view that the dollar isn't cascading lower despite rates going lower, probably because the stock market is at an all-time high. And I feel like that tire track is all over the tape in terms
Yeah.
of dollar buying in the US time zone when
Yep.
stocks are going up, and even when treasuries are rallying, same kind of dynamic. So what types for our listeners, Brent, what are the types of clients that are coming in institutionally that are like the biggest behemoths? And I don't mean by name, but by by type of institution. Who are the biggest people stomping around in the FX markets?
The biggest flows like day after day are real money, which is like foreign investors buying bonds and buying stocks.
Mm.
And then you have patches of really big corporate activity where, like, say, just to pick a random name, but like say Apple sells a shitload of products in Japan, they're getting yen, and then they need to sell the yen and buy the dollars. So the US multinationals buy tons of dollars, and like it tends to be clustered around the end of the month. But so that's like the real trade flows. And then on top of that, the hedge funds kind of like matter sometimes. Like at when there's a really strong narrative that's just picking up, the hedge fund speculative flow can dominate. But over time, it's more like the real world flows that eventually win. So if the hedge funds are right, it goes their way. But if they're not, they're going to push it like 1 or 2%, and then the real flows take back over again.
Is there a position in FX with a bullseye on it?
Not really, no.
There's nowhere where CTAs are just everybody, student body right kind of thing.
No, it was like that in dollar yen a bunch of times, and those positions got rinsed every time. So like the market was mega short dollar yen. Like I would say if I pulled up a chart, I could probably find 4 different times starting in April that the market was like max short dollar yen,
Yep.
and it
I
just
know what you're
never
talking about.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean it won't work.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's these delays where positioning creates an impediment to follow through, or like the flows just are weird. Like if you have, say, like SoftBank is doing a bunch of investments in the US and there's some inbound M&A, sometimes that can be like 10-20 billion dollars of, say, dollar yen to buy over the course of like 2 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And that will just screw everything up for a bit. And then eventually, like 4 months later, the thing does what you thought it should have done. And everyone's
Mhm.
like, what the hell? Like, how come I didn't make money?
Yeah, that happens across asset classes, man, where the timing is everything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
And
sometimes that one thing that you weren't thinking about, that's like you're missing the trade because there's one giant thing going on working against you, and it's tough to clear that.
yeah. And it always raises the question of like, when do I give up on a trade? So like, I think you and I have similar styles where you'll use price and technicals to kind of say like, okay, I'm wrong if this happens,
Yeah.
but then I'll try the trade again if it makes sense a second or third time. I'm willing to like lose 2% twice to try to make 10% or whatever.
Yeah, me too. Because all of my trades always have an egg timer on them, also. Because as you know, you can't just sit there with the position on, right? You can't just sit there with it because it gets more and more uncomfortable. The dynamics change, headlines change, and it's something that you just have to trade around.
Yeah,
I
you
want to.
start to get really weird psychology the longer, like the mental capital thing starts to kick in, where like you've invested 6 weeks in this trade, and then you start to think, man, if I cut and then it works, I'm going to kill myself. So the mental side of it, that's why I love event trading and like short term stuff, is that
Yeah.
like, okay, if I'm wrong in 2 days, I'm out, and I don't really care. I'll just do the trade again a week from now, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
when you
exactly.
invest, like once in a while, I do get into this, like, oh, I got to be short Palantir or some nonsense like that.
Yeah.
And you bang your head against a wall for 6 weeks. And then, but then still, I will generally still give up on things in a reasonable time frame.
Yeah, yeah, that's how you have to do it. That's how you have to do it. And I love all the tidbits of tactical trading that you throw into both this conversation and your note that you write. That's really that's a trader's heart talking. And so I really appreciate that. I want to talk about another topic. I think, in my opinion, when we saw the big Liberation Day stock slide right back in April, 1,000 points down and back in the S&P. I label that very much as European funds literally bailing out of their U.S. risk because of the uncertainty of tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. We are essentially through the tariff story. Stock markets are at all-time highs. Do you think Europe got a chance to reposition, Brent? Or is that
So,
what we're seeing? What are your thoughts?
no, I would say like I agree with what you said. And I think Canadian pension funds as well were massive sellers at that time.
Yeah.
The strategy, I think, at that time was more political than economic. Like, yeah, they were scared about the tariffs and all that, but it was more like the US is crapping on us. Like we thought we were allies, and now we don't really feel like as much that we're allies. And a lot of that money is like quasi government, like say Ontario teachers or whatever, or a Dutch pension fund. They have some association with the government a lot of the time. So it was going to look kind of weird as a Canadian pension fund to report at, half year end that we're overweight US equities when Trump is trying to annex your country as the 51st state or whatever. I mean, whether that was serious or not. So I think a lot of it was political and what they did was they raised their dollar hedges. So that was the dollar selling, but then they went from overweight to benchmark.
Mm.
And I don't think really anyone really went below benchmark. So there's no need for them to chase it because they're not going to go back to overweight. So
Mm.
but they are net buyers because every time like a new, slug of money goes into Ontario teachers or a Danish pension fund, they're like, okay, well, 72% of our foreign allocation has to go to the US here. So,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? Just plug your nose and buy Oracle or whatever, So a lot of the buying would still be foreign buyers, but it's not them, unwinding stuff that they sold. It's just new money coming in, like passive new money.
Phenomenal. Tell me what your thoughts are about the US being 75% of the MSCI world. Is that number likely to get bigger before it gets smaller?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you can't really fight. So it does remind me a little bit of, like, generally when X becomes crazy percent of benchmark, it's like, it's eye opening. Like Nortel was 40% of the Toronto Stock Exchange at the peak of the bubble in 2000, and but I mean, it was stupid when it was 25% and it went to 40%. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. So one is that if you compare the top 100 companies in Canada and add up all the money that they made in 2024, which would be the most recent year. I just looked at my calendar to see what year it is. What's wrong with me?
I
But
do it all the time. I do
if
it all the
you,
time.
so you look at the top 100 companies in Canada, that includes like a lot of big companies, right? Like
Yeah.
RBC, Manulife, a bunch of oil companies,
Yeah.
Enbridge, real companies that make real money. Add up those, and Microsoft made more in 2024 than all 100. So there's a reason why the
Yeah.
U.S. is overweight. It's just like that's where all the money is, right? So
Yeah.
that's where all the profits are. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I do feel like some aspect of this is cyclical and reminds me a little bit of like the optical fiber or like the commodity super cycle. Like capex cycles don't last forever. So to me, essentially, I'm just waiting for the day when Zuckerberg or someone on a conference call says, we believe the pace of capital expenditure has peaked, or like,
Mm.
future capital expenditures will be more conservative as AI build out is closer to complete, some kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
And then I think that'll be the end.
Yeah.
But like fighting it is pointless now. Like look at this Oracle thing. You can call bullshit all you want. Like where's OpenAI going to get, $100 billion of money when they're burning, whatever. They're burning way more money than they're raising,
Yeah.
or that any company could ever possibly raise, some people would argue. But
Yeah.
like, does it matter? I mean, it doesn't matter right now.
Not right now.
One day
Right.
maybe like OpenAI struggles to raise money, but that day is not today.
Yeah, it's brilliant. The timing is phenomenal. After everyone had to read Cuppy's piece, right, about another global crossing in the AI space, and that
Mhm.
was kind of brilliant. Just I really trust his sense of 30,000-foot view on the AI markets.
Yeah.
And when you kind of pair that together with the Oracle headline and how that just the trade was kind of backing off. Semis were trying to back off. The AI trade was kind of long in the tooth and backing off, and then Oracle came out with the headline, and like I'm still wondering like, is this going to be a AOL for Time Warner headline in the space? Is this going to be a Glencore files for IPO at the
Yeah.
end of the 10-year
Oh,
commodity super cycle
yeah.
print, or what it's going to be? But do you think there's a chance of that, or like
I mean, I
what?
do. Like, if you look at like how things generally top, like even 2021,
Yeah,
it's like a mad rush to find exit liquidity, bag holders, and like look at all the crypto digital asset stuff going on and all the IPOs now. Like
yeah,
anyone that's got any bags is trying to offload them onto retail at the highest possible price as fast as they possibly can.
yeah,
I mean, that's not usually super bullish,
right,
but it's also not really like a timing thing, right? Like, the Kathy Wood craziness was starting, and GameStop and all that was starting in like January, February of 2021. And we
hmm,
kept going for quite a while. So to me, it is like one more sign of the apocalypse, possibly. But
yeah. That's
and I guess there is some reason to doubt whether like, NVIDIA sells their stuff to Microsoft, who then partners with OpenAI, who then buys some stuff from Oracle, who then lends money to, OpenAI, or Larry Ellison buys a piece. Like, it's like this big flywheel
yeah.
that's super pro cyclical, and, keep dancing till the music stops, I guess, like Chuck Prince said.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. That is what is going on. And I mean, that's one of the, I like that observation because that's one of the things that kind of keeps me bullish the stock market. And I talk to people who are bearish, and I'm like, yeah, but you know what happens when we get out of the woods from the incremental worries of the stock market? The headlines get perceived as bearish. The reaction, I mean, the headline is bullish. The reaction is bullish. And it's like, those are the things that's incremental bullishness causes new highs.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I mean,
like
that's like Jared's thing, bull market, dude. Like, it's the stupidest thing in the world to say, but it's also the smartest thing
so
in the world to
real.
say because
It's
it's
so
just,
real.
look at what stocks have done. Like, we're basically 10x now since the low. The low is 666, and we're almost like 6660 would be 10x, and we're at 6605 or something. So,
Incredible.
like, you're fighting that, and that's only the index. Then there's also like, if you want to be short, you got to pay to be short. You also got to
RO.
pay the dividends, which is 2% a year,
Yeah.
and then you got to time it. So like I'm all for going short, like tactically at times,
Mm-hmm.
but I just I'm agnostic about it. To me, we're in a bull market, and I'll look for signs, and I'll look for like, we could have a repeat of 2022 pretty quickly,
Yeah.
but you got to have some signs of it besides the anecdotal stuff. I feel like the anecdotal stuff is like, it kind of piles up and allows you to like turn on your like perk up your antenna or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's not like, doesn't mean you go short on that day. It just means more like, okay, this is getting stupid. And like, I think it's Shrub on Twitter that says like max stupid as a concept, and it's hard to gauge max stupid because a lot of
Yeah.
times stupid just gets stupider, right? So
It's so great. Yeah, I had drinks with Paolo Macro at one point, and it was the Nvidia. We were talking about the Nvidia rally, and we were like, "What do you think?" And like his comment was like, "No, it's not stupid enough. Like it's not crazy enough. Like we're not. Like it's a real thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like no. When you've been watching the screens for 30 years, you're like, oh, you in your head, you're saying like, oh, you haven't seen anything yet. Like this is going to go berserk,
yeah,
and
yeah.
nobody's going to know why." I want to pick your brain a little bit about some of the store of value trades. So, what are your thoughts about gold? We broke out from 3,500 after a 5-month consolidation. Looks clean as could be to me. What do you think about it?
Yeah, that was an incredible breakout. I'm much more sympathetic to bullish gold than to like considering things like Bitcoin and stuff as stores of value. I think it gets confusing because all of these things are liquidity sponges. So you'll see like liquidity is plentiful, everything just goes up.
Mm,
But when the shit hits the fan, ultimately to me, like Bitcoin and those things are risky assets, not stores of value. So I'm more sympathetic to, like, if we're talking about stores of value, I'm much more sympathetic to gold and silver
mm,
than I am to crypto. I think crypto is more like a debasement play, which is valid,
yeah.
liquidity sponge. But if you're looking for something that's going to hedge you if the shit hits the fan in the economy or in the Nasdaq capex cycle, Bitcoin's not going to help.
No, that's totally fair. That's a great read too. And to be honest with you, I've kind of lumped it in with my store of value trades because I tactically trade it, but the world kind of refers to it as a store of value. And when I
Mm.
talk to guys that are long Bitcoin itself for the reason that it was born, like I guess that's why I think of it as a hedge, like a hedge to the currency market, right?
Yeah,
Like a
yeah.
hedge,
And I mean, like,
that kind of
store of
thing.
value kind of makes sense. Like, if everything's debasing, then and everything goes up, Bitcoin's going up, and that's exactly what's happened. I
Yeah.
guess I would argue more like in a safe haven world, then it doesn't function as a safe haven. I mean,
Oh, I
one thing
agree.
that does worry me about crypto a little bit is like a lot of smart money is getting out via these digital asset treasuries. Like, they're basically taking their $1 bills and selling them for $2 to retail. And to me, that's like another, something to be concerned about. I don't think it's necessarily bearish for the crypto like themselves, but I would
Mm,
not own any of these like crypto dats. I mean, MicroStrategy, you can argue that's the OG. They have some flywheel with the preferreds and all
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but the rest of it to me is just it's like the way GBTC went to 500% premium or whatever, and then it went to a discount. I think all of those crypto treasuries will trade at a discount when the cycle turns.
Yeah, that's a smart approach to that. I tend to agree with that as well. I also like the idea that in fairness, when the shit hits the fan, if you see the VIX at 30, I'd be more willing to bet that Bitcoin just becomes another line item in everyone's P&L that they have to
Right.
sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not like, oh, let's run into buy Bitcoin because the stock market's down 10%. Like, no
Right.
chance is that happening. No
The
way.
other kind of just bigger picture issue with Bitcoin now is that the volatility has dropped so much. And like that's the nature of anything that as the market cap grows, volatility goes down. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a whole cohort of people just looking for lottery like returns. And you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to get that from something that's trading 30 vols at whatever trillion, So I feel like that new source of buying or of demand, like I think a lot of the demand has been from the digital asset treasury people,
Mm-hmm.
but and then you get the institutions like doing the government backed, like, hey, this is a government coin, so let's buy it. But I think in terms of like retail, it's a lot harder for retail to get excited because there's no lotto returns in like things like Bitcoin specifically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Really good point. Is there anything in the markets, Brent, that I didn't touch on that it's of particular interest to you?
The one thing I find really interesting right now is Canada because there's this sort of fool me once, shame on me thing that's been going on with Canada and all the leverage there and the housing market and all that. So, like in 2013, a big magazine in Canada published like a housing crash with a picture of like houses on fire cover, and that was 2013. And things just kept on going for 12 more years. But
Yeah.
my take has always been that in Canada, if you have a job, you're going to pay your mortgage. Like you don't want to go bankrupt and give back the keys. It's not the same as the US. So as long as everyone has a job, even if you have a variable rate mortgage and your mortgage payment goes from 2 grand to 2,500, you're going to find a way to make the payment. But when you lose your job, that's when like, okay, then you just don't have a choice. You can't make the payment anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike the US, which deleveraged in 07, 08, Canada never deleveraged. Like the consumer debt chart is just like
Yeah.
completely apeshit in
Yeah.
Canada. So now you have falling housing prices. Unemployment has gone from 5% to 7.1, and then the only thing kind of keeping Canada afloat was strong immigration because GDP per capita is horrendous in Canada. But there's been a massive increase in the population, so that kind of made GDP at least flatline.
Mm.
But similar to the US, but for different reasons, the politics of immigration have changed a lot in Canada. So I feel like you have all the ingredients of the thing that people were expecting, over and over, but it never happened because people had jobs in Canada and now people are losing their jobs. So I like short Canada, I like different ways of expressing it, like Eurocad in the FX market, or like short the banks, or different things, or at least avoid being long the banks. If you're a Canadian and you're long equities, you can at least avoid like a potential booby trap where people start to get concerned about Canadian housing prices going down, and then foreclosures and unemployment, and then a crazy percentage of Canadian GDP is tied to real estate as well. So there's a lot of kind of feedback loops that could kick in there.
Yeah, man, that does. It sounds well. At least that you're giving people an axe to grind in that trade, which I really appreciate. I don't have one. I've been staying extremely U.S. centric, which
Mm.
with all the action that's going on, and I'm not an international trader like you are, with your hands on things that are kind of all
Well,
over
I
the
think
world.
that's part of why people are sleeping on this CAD trade is that one, it has been a widowmaker, and that always scares people away after a while. Like you can't lose money on the same trade 3 times or 4 times or whatever. But also, there's just so much going on in the US. Like the zone is flooded, right? So people just have trouble going like, hey, let me go look at what's going on in New Zealand. Like, dude, who cares? The US is doing all this stuff. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think people are sleeping on it, but I think by the end of this year, I think people will wake up.
Fantastic, man. All right, that's an amazing view, and I'm going to make sure to throw in a dollar Canada chart when we talk about that. Where do you think that goes, by the way, Brett? Do you have a target, a long term
So
target, even, or
yeah, but I like Eurocad because I
what do you
don't
think
really
there?
want to be long dollars. That's a problem with dollar CAD is that
Ah,
it's the beta is all US. So you can be right on Canada, but if the US dollar goes down 10%, you're going to lose money on the trade.
yeah.
So Eurocad's like around 163. I think it could go to 170 by the end of the year.
That is a nice
And
chart too.
I mean, it's a nice chart. And if you have a way of doing Eurocat options, which like my clients do, but I know a lot of
Mhm.
retail wouldn't, but
Right.
you get a lot of leverage buying, 168s or whatever, because the FX vol is just crazy low right now.
I think I can do that trade in my account. I'm going to have to look into that after we
Yeah.
get off
Yeah.
the phone.
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
you do call spreads or something.
Yeah. No, that is. Listen, I want to wrap up the market conversation because I feel like we touched on everything, and you, as usual, did a great job of articulating your views and what's going on in the world. Now we're going to get to know Brent Donnelly a little bit better. We're going to have some fun with the TG adaptation of the 5H exercise, which is really just like a social exercise to get to know people, right?
It's
So
funny. I've read so many like books about psychology and all that stuff, but I've never heard of this. So here we go.
yeah. It's a kind of fun one too. We will get to know a lot more about you when this is over. That's for sure. Let's start with the first
Uh-oh.
question. Who is your hero, Brent?
Oh, that one's easy. Terry Fox. I don't know if everyone knows who he is, but
Why?
he's a guy who was 21 years old and got cancer. He was in university in Canada in like 1980, I think. And he decided he was going to run across Canada to raise money for cancer. But then he had to get his leg amputated. So he ran across Canada with a prosthetic leg. And it was like a huge deal when I was a kid. Like every stop that he made at every town, like thousands of people would come. It was like the first thing on the news every night growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
And he actually didn't make it because he died of cancer. But he is like he's very well known in Canada, but not really that well known outside of Canada. But if you Google it or like go to YouTube and look at some news footage, it's super inspiring. It's like the ultimate grinder.
Yeah, I feel like I had a bizarre deja vu flash when you said that name and started going into the story. So I'm sure when I look it up, there'll be something that reminds me of it. Really, that's a cool hero to have. That is a really deep story. Next question: what heartache have you endured in your life?
Oh boy. I think marriage and like the ups and downs of marriage. Like I've survived, God willing, so far for 23 years or so. But marriage is hard, man. Like it's so long, and each person kind of feels like they want to give up a couple times here and there. So like even though we've made it, and I feel like I'm on the other side of like succeeding and
Mm,
getting like to a really good place.
yeah,
I still think back of like all those times of like disconnection when you're living in the same house and you're kind of like you love the person but you're not in love kind of thing.
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but just
yeah.
that feeling of like it's not bad enough to leave, but it's not good enough to stay. And like, what are we doing here and how do we move forward kind of thing?
Hmm.
And yeah, so when I think about those times, that's still, even though I think we made it, that's
Yeah.
still heartachy to think
Yeah.
about.
That's really heavy. And anyone in a
Hey,
marriage.
I mean, you asked the question.
Yeah, no, dude. I mean, I got what I asked for. Jesus Christ. I might have to change the whole genre of this podcast after this. You know what I mean?
I was thinking like, how real do we want to get here? So I tried
No,
to
that's beautiful though,
keep it
because it was
PG.
real and it's something that anybody in a relationship, I mean, I'm married for 24 years. Our ups and downs have been, like you said, real heartaches.
Mm.
And it is a real thing for guys our age, that's for sure. And it's a really popular conversation among me and all of my friends, quite
Yeah,
honestly.
I mean,
So
it's
you're not
hard
touching
because
on
when
anything
you're
taboo.
like, I'm guessing from our conversations, you were probably a moron when you were 25, like I was. You don't know, like, hey, I'm signing up, like I'm giving away all my freedom, and this is for life. Like you kind of know in theory, but it's a big commitment, and like obviously that kind of is a ridiculous thing to say because everyone should know that, but I don't think you fully understand it till you're like 15 years in, and you're like, holy shit, this is a big commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one to end on this to end this question on one thing that has given me a lot of hope through the ups and downs is somebody
Yeah,
that turned marriage issues on their head and said, marriage is a relationship between two people that refuse to give up on each other.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's some truth to that too. When I kind of thought about things that way, it helped my mind space a little bit in the
Right.
approach. In the
Yeah,
approach.
it's funny because in trading, like one of the skills that really benefits you is the ability to stop out and to give up. Like I'll stop out and I don't care if I lose on a trade. Like it just means nothing to me at this
Nothing.
point.
Yeah.
But then it makes you think in the marriage, like, okay, should I be stopping out? And like, that's the worst idea to have is that like, when do I stop out? The better idea is like, I'm all in and
Yeah.
there's no stop loss.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the better idea. That is, I mean, it's
Infinite time horizon, no stop loss.
yeah, it's along the lines of, happiness is an inside job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to make a decision and choose it, or you're never going to find it. That's
Yeah.
for sure. I've
Yeah.
learned
Yeah.
that. Man, way to go deep on this one, Brent.
Whew.
Jesus Christ, I'm afraid to ask you the next question. No, on a lighter note, what hobbies do you pursue when you're not slinging FX around the world?
I would say like writing is the number one thing that I do, like fiction, nonfiction, all that kind of stuff. I play guitar, play a lot of video games with my kids, a lot of
What kind of
Clash
guitar do you have?
Royale.
Or guitars?
Gretsch Farmer. It's like a red acoustic electric. It's a beautiful guitar. It's awesome.
Very cool.
So those would be like the main things, I guess. My son plays Magic the Gathering, so I play quite a bit of Magic the Gathering as well.
What is
I
that?
don't know. It's a card game. It's actually so like to quickly like explain it to people that don't know what it is. It's the one game in the world, like you know how they solved like even 6-person hold Texas Hold'em, a computer can beat humans.
Mhm.
It's like the one game that they feel can never be solved because it's too complex. There's like 11,000 cards. You buy these cards in packs and then you play, but all the cards have synergies with each other. It's like Pokemon for like super nerds who are kind of mathy. Like it's
Cool though. I mean, it sounds like a great brain development.
it is. It's fun. It's a really
Yeah.
fun game. And then there's like a collecting aspect to it too. You buy the packs. Actually, there's a famous video of Post Malone is a big MTG guy, and there was this card that they had a Dungeons and Dragons like crossover, and they made a card that there was just one of one. It was like the ring. It was like the one card, and Post Malone wanted it. Some random dude in Toronto opened it, so Post Malone bought it from him for $2 million. And there's a video if you go online of the kid like he obviously looks like he won the lottery. He's given the thing to Post Malone and for $2 million.
Two sticks?
Yeah, yeah. Some of the cards, like the OG cards, because it came out in 1993, some of them sell for like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. It's like, so there's a collectible side of it too that my son is into. So,
And it's blowing my mind that Post Malone is playing this like intellectual, global awareness game.
yeah,
kind of thing,
it's weird. It's sort of intellectual, but it's also kind of like there's like a lot of sort of nerdy fantasy aspect to it, I guess, as well.
I'm fine with that. My next question is a two-parter.
All right.
How do you approach your health in this day and age, Brent?
Man.
At our age.
So, I mean, I stopped drinking, which was a huge thing. Kind of like not exactly by choice, but it was more like the risk reward was just getting worse and worse for me. So I just was like, okay, I got to stop. So that has helped, I think. And funny, a thing that has helped me a lot is I'm allergic to dairy and eggs. So that rules out so many things like pizza, muffins, cake, whatever. Yeah, so much bad stuff. And I just can't eat it. So I think like obviously that's just luck or like a silver lining or whatever. And I mean, I do try to work out. I find that working out is really boring. So I prefer to like play a sport like tennis or pickleball or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do try to work out and just like grind through it.
Yeah, same, man, same. I like to walk my dog and lift free weights. That's about it, but I do it. What do you do what do you do that's bad for your health? Anything you want to share?
I mean, honestly, other than just I don't sleep very well. Like I fall asleep instantly, but I tend to wake up at like 4 a.m. and then I'm interested in what happened overnight and I can't get back to sleep.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So that, I mean, drinking and all that stuff used to be the big one, but now they cut that out. It's, I guess.
Yeah, you made that a boring question, man.
Yeah, sleep is always kind of like a deficit for me, but it also makes me super productive. If I get here at like 5 a.m, I can like write a chapter of a book before I even start work.
There's nothing better than writing about markets when they're closed.
Yeah. Oh
Right?
yeah. Yeah. As soon as I log into Bloomberg, like my eyes just flick to the chats, and it's so much harder to concentrate.
Yeah, you can't structure sentences when you're talking to 11 people at once. The last question on this, Brent, what do you hope for?
Whew. I guess I hope for politics to go back to the sidelines like it was in the 90s. Like, I'm so sick of culture wars, politics. I just hate everyone involved
Beautiful.
on
Yeah.
both sides. I just
Yeah.
hate it all.
Yeah.
And, actually, it's an interesting, I haven't written or posted about this, but something I was thinking about was, and I'm just curious what your feeling is. So if you believe that social media is a massive contributor to this, which I think a lot of people do, I definitely do. I mean, I think it's just like a toxic, addictive poison. But yet I still post on Twitter. So are people like you and I who are trying to post useful things on Twitter, are we complicit in political, cancer that has taken over the world? And should we be the first people that should be quitting social media in order to set an example, or to at least not be complicit?
No, if you're going to be, if you're going to ask an honest question, I am guilty as charged of contributing to the political crossfire. You know what I mean? There are just times that even, I've learned to say, you have a big audience, so shut up unless you really want to say something. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
literally. So my instances of participating have gone way down, but I'm still guilty. And I agree with you that we are largely on Twitter for the information, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
really, it used to be the tape. Now it's Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a professional obligation to be there. If you want to be relevant in the conversation, you have to be there. But I agree that, people don't remember. I feel bad for our children who don't know what it's like to not have this in your face all day long. Like when I was a kid, you remember when, I don't know, I don't even think you're as old as me. I'm going to be 57. But when I was a kid, we used to hear from the president when he like interrupted the school day and the whole world had to focus on a speech that he was making or something like that. And then you turned it off and you didn't see him again or hear from him for a month or 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. There was just no politics in your face. It was about Little League. It was about,
Yeah. It was about
NBA,
real life.
WWE wrestling, just like real, like fun shit. And so,
Yeah. I feel like it's a bit like a baseball game where the umpire is really evident and constantly in your face, and he's the star of the show. It's like, that's not a good baseball game. So anyways, I guess that's my hope, is that, and I'm not even pointing the finger at Trump. I mean, this started before he came in. It's just, the whole thing is just toxic and horrible.
he exacerbates it by making it right, by more toxic, et cetera. But we don't want to even get political there. That was too great of a conversation. We ended on a great note. The whole thing was fantastic. We uncovered all kinds of corners in the market. You uncovered all kinds of blind spots for me, as usual, that I'm going to start researching after we hang up. But is there anything you want to tell the audience? Tell our audience first where we can find you, and then I will say thanks.
Sure. Everything is on spectramarkets.com. So SPECTRA markets.com. And it's all there. My books and my daily and everything's there.
Well, I can encourage everybody that's interested in trading markets and reading to consume all of Brent Donnelly's content. He is as good as it gets. I'm honored that you come on this show. You're literally my favorite person to read currently in the markets, and I probably don't miss a day. So thank you so much for all the work that you put in. And we'll have you on again real soon.
All right. Thanks, man. I love you too.
Thank you very much, Brent.
All right.